Okay, South Africa is in a serious crisis when it comes to crime. This is what Mike Bolhuis said earlier today. Tonight we will be discussing a whole range of issues related to crime and keeping yourself safe. Mike Bolhuis runs specialized security services, which has a large number of specialist staff working in different areas. His new series called Bolhuis goes live on Kyknet on the 15th of October this year. Among the issues we will be covering are kidnappings. Just today, there was an attempted kidnapping of a young girl at the Kyknet Junior School. Now, please remember to subscribe to the Loving Life channels to be kept informed. Feel free to use the side chat and pose any questions you might have for Mike in the side chat. We will present these questions to our guest in the latter part of the live stream. Right, Mike, over to you. Let's start off with a bit of your background in this industry.
Scott, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it very much. Well, I started about close to 40 years ago in the bouncing industry. It didn't take very long for me to see, after I had quite a few nightclubs, looking after them, protecting them, and trying to control people that drink a lot and always fight about rugby. In those years, it was only about rugby and women amongst the universities. To see that the drug trade is starting in South Africa, and once that started, I had to make a decision, and I made that gladly, as to stand away from the nightclubs and start acting against the nightclubs. And that's when all the shit started, because there was a lot of bouncing going on at nightclubs, and there was a lot of bouncing groups in especially the main cities, and it was their bread and butter. They didn't like that. But as we moved on, I started exposing the drug trade, and then I started all the more getting in specialist investigators assisting us in the escalation in crime in South Africa, because when the drugs entered South Africa, a whole lot of other crimes came along with it. And for, I would say, between 10 and 20 years, the drug trade in the nightclubs and in the entertainment world in South Africa escalated to such an extent that it created gangs, syndicates, and mafioso organizations, which literally ran havoc amongst the youth, as well as so many other citizens in South Africa. And those more or less of my age and history and have gone through this will agree with me that it was bad. So we then started, when we dealt with the nightclub industry, it eventually fell. We exposed it a lot, and eventually nightclubs just didn't work anymore. So house parties and other forms of entertainment started in South Africa, and obviously technology and all of this also grew and became bigger and better.
Right.
So there was other ways and means of entertainment, and people started, enjoying themselves away from a nightclub, etc. So today there's very few nightclubs, but they are still in operation, and they're still involved with drugs and steroids and violence and intimidation and all kinds of extortion and crimes. So they're racketeers basically. But in the last 15 years, 20 years, we've been concentrating on serious violent and serious economic crimes. And as you can clearly see, in South Africa, and hear from me explaining how it all started, where it was just guys causing a bit of shit in a nightclub, having a bit of a fight, you getting them apart, and even the police coming in and helping, and all working together. And there was the bit of trouble here and there. Today it's mayhem. So today, with the technology available, the criminals in South Africa has taken South Africa hostage. I get the idea there's a mindset in South Africa that if you can commit a crime, you will do it because you can and can get away with it. So crime pays. It's not a story of, crime doesn't pay, like we used to say. That statement has changed. Crime does pay. And crime begets crime. If one cash in transit is successful, you can sure as hell know that there will be one the next week, and then there will be two a week, and then it will escalate. Especially if you have an authority that does not have the infrastructure and the know-how how to deal with this kind of crime. And worst of all, when you arrest and do sometimes arrest some of them, there's policemen or security officers involved. The idea what I'd like to achieve tonight is just to reiterate how bad it is in our country, but to spend most of the time on the solutions, because we aim to now, and we have always been a company, an organization, an anti-crime unit that is the end of the line. When all else fails, people will come to us. When attorneys or the police or any other authority would fail, they would ask us to assist. And we are seen as the go-to guys, but it's no use. You come to me and if you are only known for what you're against and not what you are for, it's useless. So we are for solutions, and I would at some stage later just point out some very serious solutions. But to round off a bit of my history is where we're at now. In the last 10, 15 years, we have seen and have dealt with of the worst crimes that I many a time say to people, if they were to read the dockets or see the videos or be involved in these investigations that we are involved with, you cannot unsee these things. You will literally not be able to handle it. And by the grace of God, me and my team, we're a very big team. We are nationwide. We do cases internationally. And I do not say this to offend anybody, but I do say this for a fact. I believe in God, and I thank God from the bottom of my heart for His protection, His assistance, and blessing us with an absolute discernment and knowledge and know how to deal with these situations, and being able to do this, and willing, and also being able to protect and serve. And that's why we've been successful. We are very, very successful in cases that we handle. We would love to and would have liked to splatter it out all there, because it would make such a difference to hear some good news, but we don't believe in any form of advertisement. So those who have dealt with us before will know and can testify of this. But obviously, saying this, you will, and this is probably one of our biggest problems in South Africa. We have a saying, twee boere het 4 kerke en 5 opinies, which loosely translated means 2 South Africans have got so many opinions and so many different beliefs that they just cannot stand together, and they cannot speak good of each other. There will, even after tonight, and even in your life, Scott, you've seen it. We've had a previous discussion of this. People cannot just listen to you and not keep their mouths shut. You do have those that would immediately have something to say, whether it's the old story of look at his hair, or the old story of what they've heard we have done here, or what they have disagreed with, or what they've read or heard, or so much hearsay and assumption information. And this is my biggest wish, that South Africans would be much more forgiving, be much more accepting each other and working together, which is one of my solutions I will present later. And not always, ons noem het mondspoelers, not always when they see something or see somebody, especially when he's well known, just go on Facebook and have got so many things to say without facts and without any proof, instead of rather calling a person and saying to a person, you know what, I have heard this in the past. Can we talk about this? Is this in fact true? As a matter of fact, our electronic business card, Scott, says very clearly, if you have heard anything of us that has disturbed you, or that you are concerned about, contact Mike Bolhuis directly and ask him. But this is not what South Africans do. They hear something, and then they take this assumption or this hearsay information, they don't turn it into factual information, they just talk. Because our country, unfortunately, loves to skinner. Skinner means to just talk and talk shit, and constantly, and especially on platforms. So we are here today as an organization that would like to be known for what we stand for as well, and not what we stand against. But I have, unfortunately, when you're going to ask me some questions just now, I have only bad news pertaining to safety and security in South Africa. Of course, we are not safe, and we need to be paranoid and extremely careful.
Right. Now, just to respond to a couple of the points that you made there. First of all, look at Bronkhorstspruit. 6 intruders, one arm sneaked up on the man, catching him by surprise. After calling for help, his wife of 53 rushed to his aid and was also overwhelmed by the 6 attackers. The couple were beaten with wooden planks and pipes in the workshop. The man's legs were badly injured. Now, this only happened a couple of days ago, when he was cut with an angle grinder. Streekneus's informant said the attackers apparently had a lot of information about the layout of the farm and what was kept inside the house. They demanded a large amount of cash from the couple while torturing them. The attackers used a vice grip to clamp the woman's nose and turned it while asking for money. For almost an hour the torture continued unabated. After the villains got their hands on 2 handguns, jewelry, electronic goods, at least 2 TV sets were also missing, and a small amount of cash, they finally stopped torturing the couple. Now, this is what we're talking about. This is not normal behavior. And I just want to address basically the key types of serious crimes that are happening in South Africa. So if we can go through those systematically, Mike, and let's start off with murders, and in particular, farm attacks and murders. And I want to ask you a related question. These gangs that go out and actually commit the farm attacks, they seem to be very, very well trained. Do you think that there is a political component, whether it be the ANC or the EFF, who are behind the training of these people who go and commit the farm attacks? Over to you.
Okay. You see, it is a very dangerous question, and it could be a very dangerous answer to the latest that you've stated. Here's how any murder case works. We can be of the opinion of who is behind it, and we can make deductions, and we can make assumptions, and there could be loose information all around. But unless there is a sworn affidavit or somebody or them which has been caught, given it as testimony, factual testimony on a sworn affidavit that can be presented in a court, you cannot make a claim of who is behind a murder. But I'll come to that in a moment. Taking this particular case in consideration, this is what it's come to in South Africa, because murders used to be just, if we can call it just a murder. There would be a confrontation and somebody would shoot somebody. The criminal will shoot the innocent in order to rob that person. And even before that, there wasn't murder. They would be tying the people up. I remember the years when it all started with just people entering your house or the farms or stealing stuff without any confrontation. There was nothing. They would wait till the farmer goes to church. Let's talk about a farmer now. They would wait till the family is not there, then they'll steal the batteries, break into the house, steal absolutely everything, and run for their lives in time before the people returns. Then it has escalated to a situation. They come at night and they hold you at knife point. They tie you up all and put you in the bathroom, and they rob and take everything and wouldn't dare to even cut you or hurt you. Then it escalated even further. Then it was guns. And then eventually it's boiling water, boiling kids, raping, and this, like you've explained it. So you can clearly see the escalation. And this, unfortunately, is, as I've explained before, unless crime is punished thoroughly and investigated thoroughly and prosecuted thoroughly, crime will beget crime. Secondly, unless there's a deterrent that would prohibit people, any person, from committing a murder, like very, very serious jail sentences and a zero-tolerance police that is feared and respected, unless those factors are in place, this kind of crime will keep on escalating. But here's the concern. This kind of torture and murders, it's like a message. It's like, look here, we can do this. It has been done before, but you know what? We're going to do it even worse. For that way better. We're going to do it more heinous, more horrific. And it's like the mystery of iniquity. You cannot explain it. You get the people of today, it's like an absolute lawless group of people that just decides, maybe because of just poverty, maybe because of disgruntled staff, maybe because of under the influence of a political party, maybe thinking to themselves, the criminals now thinking to themselves, if I do this, I am advancing the party that I vote for, or I'm doing this for the people that I stand with or believe in, and I'm actually doing something here that is in assistance of what I believe in. That is ignorance. That is illiteracy, and that is uneducated people that makes that deduction and therefore commits these very serious crimes. But who would really know? Because not all of these guys get caught. And when they are caught, it's very, very difficult to get behind the scenes. For instance, why have you done this? What was your motivation? Who influenced you, or who gave you the command, or who contracted you?
Right.
And that information is what we would like to concentrate. We want to concentrate on two things pertaining murders in South Africa. We have that project presently running. One is those murders that have been committed. Have they been thoroughly investigated, and have a thorough, in-depth forensic investigation been done, complete forensic investigation been done, psychologically, everything, who is behind it? What has moved these people to become, from where previous you were just held, or previous you were just robbed when you weren't at home, to this extreme escalation of unnecessary, complete and total torture, and then killing afterwards? What is the reason? And I cannot speculate, because I don't have those answers and I don't have that proof. However, what is very dangerous, and the people must not be upset with me, you cannot state something that is your opinion or your belief of how you see something, or what you have deducted, or what you have put together, or what you have heard as a fact. So you cannot go out and say, listen, the ANC government is behind this. However, you can say that because the ANC government has left the South Africans, all South Africans, black and white, all of us, on our own, because this government is not protecting or serving us.
Right.
You cannot, for instance, say this is the EFF. We know for a fact it's the EFF. And people lose it, and they make emotional statements and emotional decisions. And any emotional statement and an emotional decision is an uninformed statement and decision, and is usually wrong. You can only, we as specialist investigators, have the worlds of empathy and emotions, and we do many of these murders, and we involve in the worst of the worst crimes, but we cannot just emotionally and because we deduct and what we've heard and without facts just say the murders in South Africa, those are behind it, this is the political party, these are the political parties behind it, and this, that, and the other, unless you have facts.
Right.
So to round this up, all the murders in South Africa, and remember, certain murders are getting more attention now than others, because this is how our media in South Africa works. We've seen it in the kidnappings. Once there's one or two serious kidnappings, all the media is on it, and they make it enormous and big, and then the kidnappings is highlighted. Then this is the new thing.
Yeah.
And
Mike,
it is sensational.
Mike,
and they bring this up, and it's the same with murders.
We'll get to the media in a moment and fake news, but I just want to keep it on the serious crime side of things. And
Okay.
in your notes to people, you say, if you're a farm worker, a farm owner, and you do not have a relationship with your farm workers, you do not have a farm. Does this go to the point that's made in this article where the attackers apparently had a lot of information about the layout of the farm and what was kept inside the house? Because apparently most of these attacks are inside jobs. They get the information from someone. Can you just talk on that point, and how can farmers best protect themselves from this happening to them?
Scott, that's brilliant. Now we're moving to a solution situation. Let me sketch a scenario to you. And once again, I might be stepping on toes here, because our problem is people do not want to change, adapt, learn, or see the common goal that everybody, all colors, all religions, all political people, whatever your political affiliation is, they do not want to see the enemy, which is crime, as the common goal that needs to be eradicated out of South Africa. What do I mean by that? What I'm saying is that unless everybody in this country, of any group, any color, any religion, and any political party, no matter what our differences is, unless they see crime as the demise of our country, the break of our country, its economy, which is anything from murder to cybercrime. Unless that is seen and the penny drops there, and people work together, looking past their differences, unless that happens, this crime in our country, all of its crimes, will keep on escalating, and it will affect us all, and most probably bring this country to its worst level. So I'm going to sketch a scenario to you, and let's use the farm situation.
Right.
A farmer, if he does not have a proper relationship with his workers, he will not have a farm. They will turn against him. If there's no proper relationship between the farmer and his neighbor, he will also lose. If there's no proper relationship between a farmer and his community, he will lose. If he has no proper relationship with his local police. In other words, what am I saying? Most of these investigations has showed that it is inside jobs. You are very right there. You're absolutely correct. Most of these investigations has shown that there was information either retrieved from previous workers or present workers. Most of these information that we've received has shown that there has been serious uneasiness between everybody in the area. In other words, there's a hate. There's a hate between one farmer against the other. They just cannot communicate together. They don't want to work together. They hate each other. Between a farmer and his workers, or between a farmer and the local police or the community. This is what needs to be resolved. If those relationships could be about fighting crime together and putting differences aside and building relationships, unless that is done, I can tell you now, the information will keep going out on any farm what's going on there, and there will be those that will take that information with the insiders in that farm, and they will rob that farm or do even more horrific crimes. And that's what we are saying in a solution situation. We would like the farmers to build proper relationship with their workers, because if the workers is not on the farm and there's no proper relationship, the farm stands still. And if I'm talking about a relationship where there's proper communications, so much so that if the workers on the farm, if they know that they will lose their jobs, they have no income, they need to protect the farmer is treating them with respect, he's paying them well, he's giving them lodging, he's treating them as human beings. I'm talking out of years of investigations and experience here. You must see how some people treat other people. I'm talking about even neighbors. I'm even talking about same color and different colors. This is something that has become such a problem in our country. It's become the biggest divide because there is no relationships. Why would, and I'm staying on a farm, a small farm. Why would any of my staff run out here now and say to me, Mike, there's some problem makers outside, there are people here to kill you, if I do not look after them and take care of them? Even my own workers, and I'm talking about all my staff, black and white, all have said, Mike, you are most valuable to us because if anything happens to you, we all lose. That is the relationship that a farmer, and I'm talking about a businessman, I'm talking whether you've got 1 staff or 1,000 staff, I don't care where you are. If you have no relationship with those immediately around you, you will have no protection. Why will people step out for you or take a bullet for me? Why? If I don't treat them with respect. Let me tell you another small example. And this is a shocking one. I have seen how many times how people treat normal workers in town, which either put in diesel or petrol or does a toll gate, or there's just a form of communication with the utmost disrespect. Let me tell you, and what I have seen, if these relationships does not get better, the divide that is already there, and it's there, let me tell you, it's bad, it's the worst, which turns certain people and certain cultures and groups to a decision of either war or confrontation. It's going to become very bloody and ugly in the future. The solution is not war. There's no way we all start killing each other. There will be no winners. It will be only losers. And you know who will lose? Not those who stand up and say, hey, we're going to fight and we're going to do this and this is it and we've had enough and what. It's the family that you leave behind. What about the wife, the kids, etc., etc.? And unfortunately, people are too prone to aggression. I have no problem with aggression. If I were to be investigating a case where there's imminent danger, or somebody is going to be raped at any moment, or somebody is busy raping somebody, or somebody is trying to kill you, Scott, I will be the first one to step in and kill that person. I'll be the first one to pull my pea shooters and do something about it.
Right.
However, you cannot plan and now start with groups and everything and then say, are we going to do this, that, and the other? Because the solution does not lie in aggression. The solution lies on your relationship with your wife, your kids, your family, your neighbor. How many neighbors really see eye to eye? Ons sê altyd sonde met die bure, which means loosely translated, there's always shit with the neighbors. We have got so many South African sayings that it's just there, but the penny doesn't drop.
Right.
You know, an alarm can go off next door. People don't even call. There is everybody on his own. This one pulling this way, that one pulling that way. Everybody just either wants or has an agenda. Either wants to be noticed or seen. My group can do it. This group is a bit more aggressive and violent. This group is more this. This group is. What about all working together and all chipping in together and saying, listen, let's start with the relationships. I'm telling you now, the solution lies in those that you deal with daily by treating them with respect and looking after them so that they know, hey, you know, this guy is important to us, because if something happens to him, what will happen to us? Right. Then you'll get information, and then you'll get assistance, and then you do crime prevention, because then the information will come in and then you will know who are the bad. There's no relationship with the communities. There's no proper relationships amongst farmers. It's something that is starting now. I've seen that now. There's no relationships with farmers, with their local police stations. I've asked how many farmers, when last have you just taken a cup of coffee, several cups of coffees, some lekker hamburgers or stuff, and just treated your local police station, and just go to them and have a communication with them, ask them what you can do for them. Not trying bribing them or create some form of corruption, but just being decent and nice because you can and you can afford it. What does it take to be nice and to win more people on your side in order to do crime prevention? And if I can beg our country, and our government, Cyril Ramaphosa is supposed to have this talk. He's supposed to say this. The head of police is supposed to do these things, not me. And I'm not alone. There's many that support me.
Right.
But I've had to make a very serious decision in which route do I go. I cannot only just fight crime. I must prevent crime and I must have a solution. And our country is in a situation, it's at the point now, unless this country stands together, sees crime as a common goal, we will fall.
Right. Now, I just have to say that so many people now are saying the death penalty should come back in. I just want to talk to what you were saying just now about the farm and the farm workers. Now, just a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking to a lady who lives in Hout Bay. And what they've got in Hout Bay is called the Buzzer app. Have you heard of the Buzzer app?
The what?
Buzzer app.
Say more, maybe I have.
Okay. Hout Bay has been trialing the Buzzer app, and before they started, they had one of the highest crime rates in the country. They've now got 7,000 community members using this Buzzer app. This year, they've only had 2 home invasions, and in both cases they caught the people. Because how the Buzzer app works is if something's happening, you basically press a button on your cell phone, and it alerts people within about 100 to 200 meters of you, and they as a community then come, because they're alerted to the exact GPS position of that call. Have you heard of this sort of thing? Because I'm thinking that could work so well with farms.
Yes. What is interesting, last night I was on another stream on Salam Media, me and some very qualified people. And at the end, I ended by also stating a solution where I said that the government we need to reach the poor and the uneducated. You must remember this reaches your 130,000 people who are the haves. We are the haves. We have electronics, we've got cell phones, laptops, we've got TVs, houses, and everything else. But we actually have no idea how many have-nots are there.
Right.
That are kidnapped, raped, murdered, etc., which is going through the most horrific crimes in our country, which is in rural areas or in what we call plakkerskampe. I mean, around Khayelitsha alone, there's more than, I think, 5 years ago, there were 7 million. I think there's about 8 million people living in the worst of conditions. But anyway, what I'm saying is that I have suggested that last night, but I've suggested it before, that there should be proper apps available where the government, the police, and the public can work together, where each trains the other. In other words, where the state of the nation, in the discussion like we have today, where issues are being discussed and exposed and presented to everybody everywhere in the country. Now, if there's a proper class being given on TV on a daily basis by our authorities, which can on a daily basis just teach people the basic principles of safety and security, or what is the newest and the latest issues pertaining crime, and what is the spate of crimes being committed, etc. All the technology of today could be used for good. Unfortunately, the criminals also use it, but they use it for bad. But yes, I absolutely agree with that, and it just shows that what those people have done in Hout Bay, and I've heard of this and of other communities, is they have said, you know what, this is specifically for crime. It's not going to be abused. It's not going to be misused. It's for one thing and one thing only. We call it buurtwag. They do it in farm areas as well. If this button is pressed, everybody has a cell phone. It immediately says what, where, when, and how, and there could be a response and could be assisted. But that app and all the information in the world and everything that I've just said here and everything that we can present will still not work if there's no proper human relationships. Because a disgruntled staff member can just, because of his dire situation and because maybe he's uneducated and poor, just decide to pull off all the zincs of your roof, go through your roof, come to your bed and kill you with a hammer.
Right.
And the reason why I'm using this example is I have had such a case. I have seen where people in this day and age, they just don't fucking care anymore. They totally and absolutely lose it, and they don't care who they take down. And we've seen that in suicides. We've seen that in family murders as well. We've even had cases where a husband has completely burned down the house with wife and kids. So we're in a day and age where people, and of any group and of any color, can just completely and totally lose it and then turn to the most horrific and violent crime. But if there's relationships, you will pick this up and you will prevent this. Just to clarify that, I know when something is wrong with one of my staff members. What does it take of me to ask? And then he will say to me, you know what, it's a toothache. Then I know it's a physical thing, it's not an emotional thing. Or if he says to me, you know what, I have problems at home, my kids have no food, or one of my family members have COVID, or I'm really struggling this month, can I get a bit more? Then you know what the story is. Now, I must add to this. A proper relationship will very quickly learn both sides that abuse will not be tolerated. So you won't be misused or abused if there's a proper relationship between people. And I'm steering once again to a situation, whatever we want to do in future, we have to do it from the relationship first. Unless it won't, if we don't do that, it won't work.
Right. Now, let's move on to other serious crimes in South Africa. South Africa is known as the rape capital of the world. And, it's just absolutely disgusting what's going on with gender-based violence. What advice can you give to people who are watching this show right now to make sure that they don't find themselves in a situation where this can happen to them?
Yeah, this is a subject where I can speak of for hours, because the unit that I run is the sexual violent crime unit,
right,
which deals with child molestation and rapes. Now, let me just shock you: 1 out of 100 women maybe will come forward when they're raped. The rape situation in South Africa has changed, like the normal break-in to the heinous murders being committed on the farms and on other people. It's the same thing. In the past, rape was extremely seriously addressed, and it was a very big hoo-ha, which it should have been till today. But today it is not, because it's like women has in a way expected it and gotten used to it. Now, I'm not saying this is with everybody the case, but I have dealt with many a woman that have just said this has happened, and I don't trust the judicial system.
Yeah.
We trust you, Mike, and we can tell you, and if you want to sort out this oak, we would really appreciate it, and we do. But it's very few that opens up cases and is prepared to go through the whole crime kit and the whole judicial system and the prosecution system, and especially with the very bad sentencings in South Africa. It does not deter criminals. So most cases that and complaints pertaining rape that comes to us never goes through the police. And then I must also tell you that there's many more rapes than for those in the world that's not in South Africa. I can tell you there are thousands of rapes in South Africa that you would not even hear of. And once again, I'm talking in very poor rural areas where the closest police station is 100 kilometers away. It's a law unto their own, and there's extreme intimidation and extreme influence, etc., and then obviously complete and total control. And sometimes it's not even seen as rape. But rape, the definition of rape is any form of sexual act on a person without that person's consent. So my advice this is basically to people that hears this and that is, and any woman is a target nowadays, is that you must never ever, if you pick up the slightest idea that a man or a person is after you for sexual pleasures, you must never entice it or kindle it. You must immediately and always be known that you are not available. The problem is with a lot of women, they like to be flirted with at the office. They like to be flirted with at parties, even sometimes amongst friends and husbands and what. Once you get used to, as a woman, by accepting and being flirtatious or seeing it rather as a compliment and not standing your ground and immediately stating, listen, I don't want this to affect our friendship, but I don't like this, and I want to make it very clear. A real relationship will be deeper than that. But obviously, walking alone, driving alone at night, going to nightclubs, I believe in paranoia today. A woman should stay at home at night. I don't believe women should drive around, and if they have to drive around at night, there should be proper communications between the areas. And as I've said before, I'm totally against nightclubs. I'm totally against house parties. There's so many spiking of drinks. There's so much drugs and steroids and stuff out there that can influence you. So a woman is in an especially dangerous situation in South Africa and should take extreme precautions that she could be violated.
Right. And when it comes to child molestation, that's obviously a huge issue in South Africa. Is there anything... We know the judicial system is a complete joke, as is unfortunately the South African police service commonly. What should someone do if a child has been molested? What's the best option? What's the best route to take? Yeah,
you see, I'm used to this kind of communications because I have so many cases pertaining this.
Right.
The shocking thing is, as you very well have said, is the infrastructure of our safety and security services in South Africa cannot deal with these kinds of cases, the quantity of these cases, and the reintegration of people afterwards into society. There is no infrastructure to deal with this. People can make a case, but you always hear how bad it turns out. The shocking thing is that most, if not 90% of the people that we deal with don't want to work through the policing system, but we actually, in a way, push them and force them to do so that we at least have statistics. But they do not want to involve the family. You must understand, rapes, any form of child molestation, any sexual crime, immediately puts the family at risk that this might reach the media. Secondly, all friends and family will know. And then, as I've said before, you've got those lacquer internet trawlers on Facebook that has got so much to fucking say. Yeah. And they add their things. Now it's not just one child that is raped, it's now the whole family. And all other sadistic things has happened. That's another thing, is the devil's algebra in spreading information on a crime. It is horrific.
Yeah.
It starts this size. It's eventually that size.
Yeah,
it's like
cyberbullying.
Who says he caught a fish, and the fish is his size, but in the meantime his friend says, the fish was this size. But anyway,
yeah.
So because of the information pertaining these cases, people keep it quiet, they keep it under their wraps, And they do come to us, very few, very, very few. And they would like us, and I cannot say too much of how we act and what we do, but I'm sure you guys out there can deduct and assume on the hearsay information that I'm telling you that we deal extremely harshly, violently with a rapist and a child molester.
Right.
So let me leave it at that. You can make your own deduction, but we do want people to come forward. We do want the statistics, and we do have policemen that we still work with that can assist in this case. But the whole scenario of the lengthy court cases and the shame that goes about it, and the effect that it has on the complete family, the blame. And you know, child molestation is 90% plus by a person or persons that is known to the child. And it's usually, you know, it could be a grandfather or an uncle. It's usually a family member or a brother. The most child molestations is done by fathers, grandfathers, uncles, or family members on little girls.
Wow.
And you do get little boys that's also molested, and many a times these cases only come to us 10, 20 years later, and it has an effect on that person then as well.
Yeah.
So yes, it is shocking, and I've told you my Christian beliefs. I believe in God, and it's difficult to say, but I pray that that God will deal with these, let the wrath of God come down on these people. It's in my opinion, it's those are the people you hang. I
Right.
tell you, if I was in control of South Africa and control of the police, I will hang publicly a child molester, especially if it's a penetration
Yeah.
rape case.
We
I
need a
will
death
hang them
penalty.
on the public square.
Now,
Sorry-
moving on.
Sorry, but that's how I
Yeah.
am about these things.
Moving on. Okay, I want to cover the issue of home invasions, and I'm talking about homes and farms as well. So this is not just in the suburbs. Police Ministry have welcomed a move by Cabinet, this has just come out today, to approve the South African Police Service Amendment Bill of 2020. Now, what this means to people at home is that lethal force may not be used for protection of property only. However, when life and property are endangered simultaneously, the use of lethal force will be warranted. Now, in the USA, if someone comes into your house, you have the right to shoot them. You've got the Second Amendment. You've got that right because they shouldn't be in your house illegally. So you have the right to shoot. Now, in South Africa, it's different. What impact does that have on someone who is facing a home invasion?
Can you see how shocked I am? What do I say to that? In my opinion, in my factual opinion, if your life, Scott, is in danger, and I'm with you at a spot, and the next moment you could be killed, and I have the ways and means to protect you, I must do everything in my power. But if the only way is to protect you by shooting or killing another person that's the next moment going to kill you, I have to do that because I save a life. If I do not, then I'm guilty of your death. In other words, if me and you are swimming and you are busy drowning, and I don't take you out of the pool, who's the murderer? So, as far as I'm concerned, in anybody in your house and your life is in imminent danger, and there's no other ways and means as to protect you and your family, you have to shoot. The problem is, and protect yourself, and you have to kill the perpetrator or perpetrators. The problem comes in when people aren't properly trained. Because remember, if you are woken up in the middle of the night with a knife against your throat or with a gun against your head, the only thing that you can do is say, "What can I do for you, sir?" That's a joke in South Africa that we would say, what do you call a criminal with a gun? You call him sir. Why? You don't look him in the eyes, you're humble, and you do whatever it takes so that he doesn't harm your wife and your kids.
Right.
And I'm sure everybody of all your listeners would agree with me here. But you are not trained, most people aren't trained to deal with a sudden invasion in your house with people with guns. You absolutely, in our investigations, these people are absolutely flabbergasted. They are taken by complete surprise. There's so many emotions and adrenaline going left and forth, wives, kids screaming. There is no preparation for that. And that in itself can make people make the wrong moves, or suddenly become aggressive or emotional and over emotional, and that's when sometimes people are killed. And most of the times, as I've explained earlier on, that these killings are now just random for the fun of it. That's how bad it is. But I'm talking of a scenario where if you in a home invasion are being attacked, it is very important that you and your family in a way should be prepared. So I am saying that families in South Africa must prepare themselves as a family. I've said this before. I've sent out projects on this. And as a matter of fact, on this note, I just want to quickly say, Scott, all our projects are very properly, professionally prepared to enlighten the public. They expose crime, but they also give advice as how to prevent crime, and they also and constantly state the situation and the present crimes that's being committed in South Africa. So it's very good to read these. It would be very valuable to read these projects, because we'll tell you exactly what's going on. But if you are attacked in your house, you should in a way already be prepared. And that's why I say families in South Africa should prepare themselves, have a sit down with the wife and the kids and say, all right, kids, this is the situation. It's no use we beat about the bush here. This is happening in South Africa, but depending the age, telling each kid what needs to be done, and then making sure, obviously, that everything is in place, what should be in place, obviously, to prevent this by having proper alarm systems if you can afford it, by not getting what we call slop. You're getting, it's not happening to me, and this is still a big problem in South Africa. Many people are under the impression it hasn't happened to me, and it most probably won't happen to me. I would urge people to have a constant thought of this could happen to me. And you need to be prepared. You need to tell your wife exactly what you're going to do. If you've got weapons in the house, you need to be trained how to use those weapons and when. And if you are totally taken by surprise, what should the family do? And unfortunately, I cannot guarantee their lives, but I can say that out of investigations and experiences that we've had, if you are completely giving your full cooperation, if you have no other choice, then your family is more valuable than all those guns in the safe, all the gold bars that you've been hiding from SARS, all the money under the bed, and every and most valuable thing there is. You must do everything you can in order to save your family. And the reason why many of these tortures goes down, it could be because of this information, is because the criminals is under the impression that there's much more. But you can also in any way just do what you can, but it's very important that your focus is to keep your family calm, that you're prepared, that if this happens, this is what we're going to do as a family. And as I've said, you must make sure that you do routine checks at night. I'm going to give an example. Every night, I do the same paranoid move differently, but I do it every night. I every night walk around the premises, my offices, everywhere. I every night check the alarm system. I check it daily. I every night make sure that anything that is on, and I have my perimeter controls in the morning, I treat my area always as a possible place of an attack. My wife knows what to do. My kids knows what to do. And we know what to do in a situation like that. And for the record, my house has been broken into, and by the grace of God, we've been spared. And every time this kind of thing happens to a person, and it's most probably happened to most people, you adapt and you escalate your safety and security if you've got the money and and the know-how and the ability, you should do that.
Right. Now, there's just one comment I'd make about what we've just been talking about there, and that is that a gun locked in a safe is the worst possible thing you can have in a house if there's an attack. Because what they'll do is they will demand that you open the safe and you're given a criminal your gun. So if you've got a gun, am I correct in suggesting that that should always be on you when you're in the house?
Yep. I've got something shocking to say to everybody. Don't keep your gun unless you are prepared to use it one day if there's imminent danger, and don't keep your gun if you don't know your gun as good as your hand. It should be an extension of your body. If you don't know your weapon, if you don't keep it clean, if you don't exercise with it, practice with it, and if you're not familiar with your gun and your family also knows how you are going to work with a gun, or you or your wife, so that you don't scare the living shit out of your kids the night that you do pull it, then I'm telling you, you shouldn't be in possession of a gun. You should be extremely trained with your gun. It should be an extension of your arm, and it should be always on and with you.
Right. Okay, now let's move on to another serious crime, which seems to be escalating. We had an example of that earlier today at Trichardt at the junior school. And we're talking about kidnappings and human trafficking. Now, what should people do to make sure that they don't become a victim of that? I'm talking largely the younger people, but more and more adults are also being targeted now. So what are the safeguards we should look at?
Okay, first of all, there are about 7 or 8 levels of kidnapping. The most committed kidnapping in South Africa are parents, that is withholding children, one parent from the other, and that most probably got to do with a divorce case or a bad relationship or family issues. In South Africa, you can open a kidnapping case if you do not deliver the child back to the other parent as agreed or as arranged. That other parent can open a kidnapping case. Also, if you withhold the child against their will, and the one parent is under the impression that other parent, and it's many a times abused. Let me tell you, of the most abused and used cases against each other is kidnapping cases in South Africa, because it's such a horrific name, and you immediately think, ooh, it's somebody that's grabbed, taken, and flown away and is in some sex house in Dubai. But the levels of kidnapping in South Africa, as I've said, is about 7, and these are the most committed kidnappings, is on the family level. The top one is when it is international syndicates, mostly targeting very, very rich businessmen. Of late, they've been targeting the Muslim community, Pakistanis or Bangladeshis, or extreme rich businessmen in South Africans, Indians. And what they would do is these syndicates are so brilliant. They're oiled machines. They plan these kidnappings 6 months ahead. They get all the information of the person they're going to kidnap. By the time they kidnap this person, they've done all the surveillance, they've done all their forensic investigations. Remember what I've said before, the criminal syndicates of today have got the money and the power and the influence and the connections in the authorities internationally to get any form of grabber or machine that can track and trace you anywhere and pull all your information, exactly what you have in bank, and what is your relationship with SARS, what is your relationship with the police, and etc., etc. And I've said these syndicates are very involved with corrupt policemen, security personnel, and obviously they've got a muscle team as well, so they rely on extreme intimidation. So when such a syndicate does take somebody, they've planned this thoroughly, because they're going to get 40 million or 50 million from those people, and they don't mind waiting 12 months or a year before they get it, because they do get it. They never get caught. It's very, very seldom that top syndicates ever get caught, and they can be from China, they can be from Dubai, America, United Kingdom, Europe, and involved with Mozambicans as well as South Africans, but they They're an oiled machine, and they do it very, very well. That's the top ones in the highest echelon. So more regarding South Africa, I would suggest, and I've said this so many times before, that the relationships between families must be tight. You know, I've seen it how many times before, that the families, they don't eat together. The kids get home, they close the doors, they're on their laptops the whole day, they're on the cell phone, or they just go out to a mall, or they're just out at friends. There's no relationships whatsoever. We need to get our kids back, and we need to get our kids off the platforms, off Twitter, LinkedIn, all these funny names, Facebook, etc., etc. They completely, totally hooked. It's worse than heroin. It's the worst thing for a child, to be constantly on a platform. And they make serious mistakes, because they send selfies, they take selfies, lekker, and then at the background there's the house's details, the car registration, or they take a complete video of their whole holiday and everything, and documents in the house, and etc., etc. And this gets taken by a friend, and this gets placed on Facebook, and voila, Bob's your uncle. You get some West African that befriends them, and they have this information, or an East African, and then just one day you are walking somewhere, you're part of the group, and they hold you with balaclavas at knife point. They take your own phone your parents, and say they want 5,000 or 6,000 rand. That's another level of kidnapping and extortion, and this happens quite a lot. You never hear of it, but it's because the kids and the families aren't close. The parents should know exactly what's going on the kids' phone. If you walk to your child today and you say to him, give me your phone, and he refuses, I can tell you now he's busy with something he shouldn't be busy with. And a lot of them are involved with pornography as well. To them, many a times it's seen as a joke. But the kids should be, if they are allowed to have their cell phones, I don't agree with the cell phones, but if they do go out, I have kids as well. I have an app, I have a proper track and tracing device. I make sure that there's a mature person involved. I make sure that the hours are set. This needs to be done. But let me shock you now, the lawlessness in this country among the kids is shocking. There's no respect for the elders or parents. The kids do what they want, say what they want, go where they want, and feel like they want to. They have absolutely no respect. So if you want your child safe, sorry guys, you'll have to clamp down, make some serious rules and regulations, and that includes mom and dad as well. Yeah, you need to be very careful. You cannot just drive without looking in your rearview mirror. You cannot just do anything in South Africa anymore by just being a bit paranoid and a bit more aware of your surroundings and what's going on around you. And if you don't do that, you could be a possible victim. So kidnappings is something that you can prevent by having a close-knit family, knowing what's going on, knowing what to be aware of, staying away from hotspots, staying away from areas that you know where you can be a possible target, and always making sure that you have parents or that you are as a group together, and always making sure that there's parties that knows exactly what your whereabouts.
Right. Now, let's move on to extortion and sextortion. First of all, what is sextortion? And then, secondly, once again, the same question. How should people make sure that they don't fall in that situation? And if they do, what are their options?
So, sextortion, the person that this has happened to will immediately click, because this has happened to that person. It's when you have been stupid enough to take naked pictures of yourself and send it to another party which you have thought is a most beautiful blonde girl. That is the basic sextortion. In the meantime, on the other side, it is West and East African syndicates that has been phishing, sending out numbers with stolen identities of the most beautiful girls with very big breasts, and the photos get all the more naked, and they want naked photos of you. And here's the shocker. I have done more than I do those cases myself. I've done more than 2,000 sextortion cases, but I can tell you there are more than, most probably 20,000, if not up to 2 million in South Africa as forms of sextortion. Now remember, sextortion is not only this. Sextortion is when you've been in a relationship and your hubby or your boyfriend or girlfriend or each have taken lekker videos while all went well, and now the relationship went bang, and now it's a divorce or the relationship breaks off, and now suddenly the girl or the guy says, all right, you know what, if you don't give me this, that, or the other, I'm going to show this, that, and the other. So rule number 1 is you never, ever take naked photos of yourself, ever. Never, ever. Ever. And another form of sextortion is where you've done absolutely nothing wrong and suddenly somebody sends a picture of you with a naked body underneath your head, which has been photoshopped. And you get the shits and you thought, where the fuck have I done this? But you've never done it. But what has happened is there's been, once again, information theft, information of you that have been retrieved by these syndicates, and they have now photoshopped your head on a naked body and said that if you don't pay us this, that, and they start with small amounts, we're going to put this on your whole Facebook post and all your platforms, which they then by that time have your the information of, which means somewhere along the line somebody has infiltrated your information either by hacking or you've thrown documents in your dustbin that had some valuable content of yourself. So here's another rule: you never ever discard of any document that has any information that could be used of you, that could be used by criminals by using a dustbin. You shred it. Third piece of advice is your cell phone. This thing is the next DNA. If I have this of you, I have everything of you. And in today's day and age, there is no such thing as privacy. That's an illusion. So keep your cell phone off if you don't use it. If you use your phone for business and pleasure or whatever, always delete what is done and dusted. I constantly have a fight with all my anti-crime units, always saying to them, big bold letters, delete, read and delete. Don't keep information
and can
on
I
your
just
phone.
add to that, Mike? That deleting is not enough. You've actually got to empty the trash can.
Yeah. That's very important. Thanks for bringing that up, Scott. Smartphones today can store things in Gallery, Safari, and in your recycle bin or in your trash can or whatever you want to call it. So when you do have a smartphone, and everybody has, you must make sure if you clean your phone to clean it thoroughly and properly. Another piece of advice is just get a bit of information about your phone, learn a bit more, Google as much as you can, watch the documentary, the social dilemma. Watch that documentary. It's worthwhile watching. And Machine, there's another documentary that explains the enormous problem in the world pertaining social media. And go to your cell phone provider and say to him, listen, I've got this phone. Just teach me a bit. How can I prevent hacking? How can I prevent? How can I put anti-spy information on so that I know my phone is safe? Find out. Don't just get the newest and the best and the nicest phone and don't know that phone off by heart. Know it like your gun, for instance. You should know it like the palm of your hand because your phone is the next DNA. So here's how I put it to you. If you lose your phone and you shit yourself because there's so much information on your phone that could put you in a compromising position, you must now immediately take your phone and do something about it. But if you lose your phone and say, well, I've lost the phone, I'll claim it from insurance, but there's nothing on it that anybody can use, you're in the correct spot.
Right. Okay. Well, that's really good advice. Now, we're talking about, when we talk about smartphones, we're talking about cybercrime. And I've got a question here about that particular issue. Wolfie asks, I have a serious question. Please ask what Mike thinks about the dark, deep web and his thoughts on groups like Anonymous. Can't the government be hacked and exposed?
Now, as I say, we can talk for days on this subject. I am one for, let's deal with what we know first before we start dealing with what we don't know. Why am I saying that? People are so eager as to learn more, but they haven't learned from the past or what they've been presented with, like what we are discussing today, or what they know that they need to deal with immediately first. They just want to learn more and more and more, and exciting things and intriguing things and interesting things, etc. We should all move away from the technology as much as possible and only use it if it's absolutely necessary in your job or in your life. We must go back to where if I stay next door to you, I don't WhatsApp you, I walk to you and I talk to you. We should move back to where there's proper communications and only necessary communications, and not just all this thousands of internet trolling and WhatsApps and TikToks and all the shit and fake news. And it is incredible. Yeah. It's nice to see a joke every now and then. It's nice to see an interesting song. It's nice to see a nice piece of nature, WhatsApp, etc. But the shit that is being portrayed nowadays on all the platforms it's horrific. So my advice out there is deep web and they look, anything God created for good, Satan will use for evil.
Yeah.
So the technology is for us to progress. It's to our advantage. It's to help us, to learn us more, to help us in our businesses, to do good. But the evil out there will use it to commit crime. And stay away from things you don't need to know. And stay away from enticing things like, for instance, all these platforms and all this information that's being said that has actually no effect on you, or can better your life, or can assist you. Why would people, and this is, I don't understand this, why would people take in so much trash? Why do people not rather see this is, or place interesting information, valuable information, and to the advantage of myself, my family, and the public? I always say in my drug rehabilitation groups, I always say to them, the best reason I can give you that drugs is bad for you is because you wouldn't give it to your 4-year-old for breakfast. And that includes smoking as well, which is the biggest drug in the world. If you smoke, I can tell you now, you will have very big difficulty in putting it aside. And if you can't put it aside, you're addicted. That is addiction, if you can't put something aside. So people are addicted to these things.
Manuel Magro asks, and this is a related question, Mike, what is your opinion about syncing to the cloud and privacy risks?
Well, as I've said before, if you today have a smartphone and you have serious compromising information or extreme information on your phone, and you are operating on your phone in a criminal manner or in any other manner, your information is never lost. It could be drawn, and especially countries like America and Israel, which has the best of the best, and Russia, technology, I can tell you now, in other words, what I'm saying is, it's not like steam. Now you see it and then it's gone. It will always be in some form, somewhere, like water now. It is stored somewhere, and we all know where that is, and will always be available. And the technology of today is of such that if the specialized units of those 3 big countries that I've mentioned, and there are others as well, if they do need to get some information of something specifically, they can get it, no matter how many times you've deleted it.
Right. Now, what I want to cover now before we go into disinformation and fake news, is basically the rampant corruption that's happening. And there are three areas. There's police corruption, there's government corruption, and municipal corruption. Can you explain to us how that is impacting South Africa?
It's breaking our economy. If we get 500 billion for the serious pandemic that we have, and it doesn't reach the poor and the sick, it breaks our country. If our municipalities gets millions and millions of rands to clean up the rivers and the dams and fix the roads, and it doesn't get done, it breaks the country. If our government gives millions of rands to the police, and you hear that a blue light costs 75,000 rand, one blue light, little blue light costs 75,000 rand, and we've got hundreds of examples, it breaks our economy. The problem here is, Scott, everybody that listens to this have read it somewhere along the line in the media. This is all factual, this is all as it is. The thing that I try to now get to is a solution as well with this. And here's where I have a problem. I have no solution unless the government takes this seriously, heed my warnings, and change. Unless the ANC government. Any change in South Africa has to come from Mr. Ramaphosa. If it doesn't come from him as the president, there will be no change in this country. And that's why I say, in my opinion, this president, our government, and some of those in the police and the authority, our government and its safety and security infrastructure is guilty of our country's demise. In other words, they are guilty of everything that's going wrong in this country. I cannot say that they is not to blame for what's going on in this country. I can only say they are to blame. If this country turns around on a zero tolerance basis and deals with corruption thoroughly and properly, and the money gets to the poor and the uneducated people. Remember, if we get our country educated, literate, knowledgeable, and we give them just basic infrastructure, I can tell you 90% of the crime will go away. Most of the crime, let me shock you, most of the crime in the world is committed because it stems from ignorance, illiteracy, uneducated people that is poor. It's people that don't know of any better. And if you are so hungry, and if you are uneducated, and you are dying of thirst and of hunger, you will steal your neighbor's chicken. You will steal. And once you've stolen a chicken, crime begets crime. Then you will steal the bicycle. And then you will break into the house. And then if you confront it, you will most probably beat or murder that person. This is the effect of if you have a society that has been left behind in extreme poverty and illiteracy. Crime can only be eradicated if the government protects and serves the municipality and all the authorities and the police, all people. And the ANC is not doing that. And the ANC has literally left us to fend for ourselves. This is what we're doing here. We are a boat in the sea. All of us, all our people, I'm speaking to all the South Africans, black, white, Muslim, Indians, Chinese, everybody that's in South Africa. All of it, my workers, your work, all the others in South Africa. I'm speaking to all South Africans here. We are on a boat and the government is on the shore and they are not going to rescue us, but they can. And I wonder if they really want to, because I've never ever seen our government step up. You know, the president can at any time say, every night from now on, I want to speak to my subjects. I want to speak to my fellow South Africans. I want to tell them something. I've never heard the president speak on television, on national television, saying, listen, I am absolutely fed up of crime. Come on, guys, let's work together. If the president were to speak what I have spoken tonight, I'm telling you now, if he does this speech, you will see the difference tomorrow.
Right.
If the president goes on TV tomorrow night and condemns farm murders, murders, rapes, child molestation, corruption. If he goes through all these crimes that we investigate, and he says with a stern face, I, the president, say, I will not tolerate this anymore, and me and my government and the authority won't stand for this shit anymore. He can use that word. I'm telling you now, you will see the difference tomorrow. And remember, some years ago, we were all very excited, him being the president, because we thought that's what he was going to do. Because if there's somebody who fucked up this country thoroughly, it was Zuma. So, unless that happens, Scott, we are fending for ourselves, brother.
Right. Now, what I have to say about this particular issue with corruption, Mike, is that if you're a whistleblower in South Africa, exposing corruption, you tend to be the one who's ostracized. And the corrupt person, all they do is they shift him from one position to another position in a different business, because he's what I call black privileged. He's an ANC cadre, and they just seem to be above the law. And I think that's why corruption is so bad at every level of government in South Africa. Now, let's get on to a very important topic which we haven't really touched yet, and that is disinformation and fake news. Now, but before I hand this over to you, I just want to say to you that I have a huge concern with the mainstream South African media, and in particular the SABC, which is basically run by the ANC, because they put out so much fake news. Now, when I'm using the word fake news, I'm talking about if the issue, like a farm murder, does not meet their narrative or their agenda, they ignore it. And I want to give you two examples of this, Mike. Think of the coffin case, or those two young white guys. How that was on the news for weeks because there was two white guys abusing a black guy. Now, if there's the most horrific farm murder, like the Bronkhorstspruit murder, yes, it did get out there in the news a little bit, but there was no response to what's going on with farm murders from the government, for example. So the actual news in South Africa is so biased towards one aspect and not the other, and that's why I call it fake news, because there's no balance in the reporting. Now, I'm going to hand the subject over to you, because you've got another take on the whole subject, which is great. So over to you about disinformation and fake news.
Scott, I'm going to ask you a very big favor. First of all, guys, I apologize. I had to use a bit of doom because we have mosquitoes in South Africa, and they were starting to eat me up here. Secondly, Scott, can you just talk to your listeners for 2 minutes? I have to go to the loo.
Oh, absolutely.
Otherwise, I'm going to, as they say, wet my pants.
Okay, no, you go ahead. I'll keep chatting away here.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Look, firstly, once again, I do need to apologize that we started 15 minutes late tonight. I did have an issue with my XSplit streaming software. I don't know why the microphone wasn't coming through, but it is what it is. Now, let's get back to the fake news issue. I don't think anybody watching this right now, we've got about 500 people watching right now, I don't think anyone can dispute that the way the mainstream media, not just in South Africa, but around the world, treats subjects like black on white crime the same as white on black crime. Look at Black Lives Matter in America, for example, how that is just, it's like this is the greatest thing that ever happened in America. And even here in Australia, we have protests by Black Lives Matter. Now, to me, all lives matter. And it's very concerning when you look at who's behind, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement. And we haven't got time to go into that because I've only got a couple of minutes to talk. But when it comes to the mainstream media, as Donald Trump says, it's fake news. And clearly, fake news also happens on social media, and disinformation happens on social media. Now, this is a subject that Mike is going to be talking about, so I'm not actually going to go into that at all. But Let me assure you that on the Loving Life channels, we are basically a news channel using the YouTube platform. And I have to tell you, it's a bumpy ride on YouTube. My gosh. Have you got some YouTube police out there who just like the mainstream media, if you're on the left side of politics, you can just about say whatever you like. But if you're on the right side of politics, or you believe in people's cultural identity and restoring that, and restoring family values and Christian values and all these things that we grew up with. I'm an old fart, so I grew up with these values, so I understand them very well. But the new kids on the block, they come from a totally different cut. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand how they actually go to bed at night and go to sleep because of some of the things that these guys do. But this again is something that Mike will be talking to us about. Now, I've got a few questions here from you guys in the side chat, so please keep putting them up. And please remember to subscribe to the Loving Life channel to be kept informed. Now, I see Mike has joined us again, and he's looking a lot more relieved. Was that a close shave, Mike?
Yeah, we're human.
We're all human, exactly.
We're human after all. And the mosquitoes really bit black, eh?
Okay, now let's get on to disinformation and fake news. Mike, what would you like to say about that and the impact it has on us?
I'm sure it's everybody out there knows this is a worldwide problem. We see it very clearly between America and all the other countries, especially when there's elections and stuff like that. But in South Africa, it has particularly struck me. I've earlier touched on the subject that it seems like the people in South Africa they cannot help themselves. They are slaves to their thoughts, and they just so eagerly want to forward something without doing a proper vetting and an evaluation and finding out the facts. They want to be the first to have sent this through, and they want to get the credit for it, that, hey, I have sent this and I've sent this horrific thing.
And it's gone viral.
Yeah, it just goes, it's on and on and on without thinking twice. It is, once again, another mystery of iniquity. Why people would do that, I cannot understand. Once again, I need to say that when you have information, it is important to check the facts. Do not send it if you're unsure. That's rule number one. Secondly, take time and find out if this is in effect factual. And then thirdly, does this benefit people? Remember, people, each one is cut out to handle information, and you cannot unsee things. So it's very irresponsible to just send photos of slaughtered animals and slaughtered people everywhere. Some people cannot sleep when they see that.
Yeah, I can't watch that.
Some people, unfortunately, yeah, they open it and then it's there. And other people, they just start seeing the blood and they immediately start forwarding it. So you need to also, fourthly, ask yourself, if I do send this, what effect is this going to have on those that I send it to? Is it going to be to their advantage? And is it going to make a difference, and does it enhance our lives? So if I can just get those criteria in, it would make a big difference. Pertaining fake news, the government should also step in here, the worldwide governments. There should be proper monitoring of Facebook and of all these platforms. There's none. You can on Facebook say and do whatever you want. That other person that asked about deep web, all these unnecessary and dangerous things that is sometimes being said and spread, and specifically photoshopped information and clear fake news and disinformation, which can be by the extreme technology personnel of these platforms, can be identified. Why don't they stop it? Money. Remember, all these platforms want you to constantly forward. They make money out of you forwarding something and receiving something by you participating constantly on the platforms. So I have a very big problem, and I say it straight. Facebook is extremely irresponsible by not monitoring their platforms, and so all the others. I don't even have to mention the names, you know them. Especially WhatsApp as well, and now with all these other and more platforms that is available. So in South Africa, we have a very big problem. Somebody might start with a piece of information, and by the end, the last person that gets it, it is 10 times worse.
Yeah.
I call it devil's algebra, and it's very, very dangerous because you are steering people in a wrong direction, you are misinforming people, and it's a crime. And so much so that the General Mawela the other day, with all this kidnapping stories, I mean, there was videos, there was so many fake videos, voice notes, there were even spiritual people prophesying. It just completely went haywire. Like I have previously explained, when something starts, it becomes like, we call it a veldbrand. It's like a very big fire. It just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and enormous. And then everybody jumps on and everybody gives their take and everybody spreads the news and they add or they subtract. So the general sent out a letter, and I praised him for this, and I've told them they should do this constantly by warning the public not to send fake news. But once again, it doesn't reach those that it should read. I also warn platforms that they should have proper administration. So in South Africa, you can have a WhatsApp group of about 250 people. And I've always suggested that they should have proper admins that is qualified and control those groups. Because once again, I'm warning you, whatever you send on your phone, you identify yourself. If you got constant political slurs, you're saying, if you constantly have got something to say about this country, and you say it in a slanderous or in a derogatory way or in a racial way, you identify yourself and you create enemies, and you can be prosecuted for that. People very easily just react on news, and any news that comes in, and they say the most horrific things without thinking. That's very, very dangerous, because the next night he's in a bar and he loses his phone, and somebody picks it up. And that person might be just somebody that decides to use that information and send it to other authorities who extort you. So I can carry on and on and on. But fake news is a very, very big problem. And I'm sure all of you have heard of this before. I once again want to urge you, as I previously said, let's move away. Let's move back. Let's start doing proper communication. Let's start being extremely careful what we place. And let's start taking in consideration that what you are sending, is it to the advantage of yourself and the others? And at the end of the day, love your neighbor like you love yourself.
Right. Now, let's get on to something that's really topical right now, Mike, and that's the impact of the COVID-19 lockdown on South Africa and crime. Which crimes escalated and which crimes decreased, and why? And what do you think is going to happen after the lockdown ends when it comes to crime?
When the lockdown in South Africa, I think it was March, came in lockdown 5, which meant you sit at fucking home. The serious violent crimes like cash in transit, farm murders, violent attacks dropped immensely. But other crimes escalated. Extortion cases, cybercrime, hacking. Because now the people are at home and they constantly, on the laptops, on the computers, on the cell phones, they're doing everything through the electronics and doing stupid things. And a lot of hacking, a lot of sextortion, extortion, a lot of cybercrime cases evolved. Also, what escalated was the families just had enough of each other. Family members would leave with kids, as I've previously explained. So child kidnapping per se happened, suicides, family violence. small petty thefts and crimes actually escalated. So when the lockdown started subsiding, by about a month ago, suddenly we had a spate of farm murders, we had a spate of cash in transits and serious violent crimes. It's like the criminal said, you know what, we've had 6 months now where we sat back and did nothing, here we're coming back, here's what we're going to do, and they did. And now it's a bit of a flat line, but it's still a concern. We know from history that repeats itself. This time of the year, the criminal element, it's like they have an attitude, for the next 2 months we're going to do what we're going to do, because December we're also going to the sea and swim and relax. So it's ironic, it's actually so. The spate of crimes and all kinds of crimes might now escalate in October and November, but overall we have a very, very bad statistic situation in South Africa. So you cannot really get proper statistics from all the crimes being committed in the country. And obviously you're not going to get the statistics of all the corruptions being committed in the municipalities and in the SAPS or in the government. You must rely on the media. And you earlier spoke of the media. Let me tell you, I've probably the best relationship with the media in South Africa, because they know me. When I'm called, I never say no comment. I always say what I mean, and I mean what I say. And they know they can always call me, and I'll say it as it is. And if it wasn't for them, we would most probably not really hear what's going on in this country, because the police and the police statistics is not necessarily correct or forthcoming. The police will constantly say, Mr. Public, please work with us, work together. But if you go to them, there's no relationships. As the relationships is, they really don't want to protect and serve. They really treat you with no respect or assistance at the local police station. It's unfortunately so. And that's why I previously said, when we initially talked and said we need to build relationships, because it's both ways. That relationship needs to be restored from both ways. And somebody has to bend over backwards and say, you know what, I'm going to fix this, and I'm going to have a relationship with my local police station. But the most complaints we get from people dealing with the police is that they were not treated with an attitude of protect and serve. We want to assist you and help you. How can we help you, sir? Or how can we help you, ma'am? Or can we be of any assistance? There's no such thing. It's like the attitude of, oh, yeah, and we don't want to help you. And we get that literally straightforward, looking for any way to get you out of the charge office rather than helping you. So the media has been very, very good to the public, in the sense, although it is sensational, but they have been stating exactly what's going on in this country quite correctly.
Right. Now, I'm just going to post some or put some of the questions that I've got from the side chat to you, Mike. Rudy Geldenhuis has asked, what does Mike think about the recent rise and growth of community safety structures like AfriForum, the CPF, radio groups, and other community startups?
It's all good, but the moment you are a group that is seen as a specific group and dealing only with specific issues or specific people, and I'm not saying that some of them are, but I'm saying this is the criteria. You must be very careful to explain this, and that it's understood carefully. Any group, including me, if I only deal with a specific kind when it comes to safety and security, when I am in the game, or in where I provide a service of safety and security, and I make a choice only to deal with certain people or certain issues, you're gonna run into problems. Secondly, I agree with all of these groups that their intention is to do good and to make a difference. But once again, if all of these groups don't work together, it won't work. If The problem in South Africa, each one has its own agenda and does not necessarily have room for the other.
Yeah.
The problem in South Africa is you've got too big a divide. Certain groups do not want to, because of just a couple of issues, not deal with other groups. It's ironic, you'll get all the different people going to a rugby game. But if you get them all on that stadium to stand together against crime, they cannot. They can all stand together and watch rugby. All of them, all colors. All kinds of people. Men, women, children, any religion, they're all there. They're focused on one thing, the rugby game. They're all there. 80,000 of them. But take the rugby away and let somebody stand in front there and say, let's do this and this and this and this and stand against crime and seek crime as the common goal and the enemy. You will see they'll start making groups, and this one doesn't want to work with that one because his ways is this way, and this guy is too violent, and this guy only deals with certain colors, and this person has got that belief and religion, and this, that, and the other. That's the problem. That's the biggest problem in our country. So I support all of them, and it's my aim in these couple of months and years to come and I have stretched out my hand and my organization's expertise and everything of us. We started with that last night and before, months ago, on all the Parabat and reconnaissance groups and all the WhatsApp groups. We've started out by saying that we would like to, and we will be the first, and we will be humble about it, and we will be supporting in every way to work with any group, person, authority, government department, the president, the police, everybody. We will work with all of them as long as we all see crime as the issue and not anything pertaining color or political affiliation or religion.
Right.
That's the problem.
Now, I have to say that the Boer republics had three wonderful little words that sum up what you're talking about. And that's Eendracht maakt Macht. I mean, that's what needs to happen. And for those who don't speak Afrikaans, well, I think that's actually Dutch, Eendracht maakt Macht is actually unity is strength. And that's the bottom line. Now, okay, before we move on to the next point, I just want to give you another question from the side chat. Yarnier has said, the media should give more info on criminals getting caught or neutralized instead of making it look like criminals mostly get away with their crimes, thus promoting crime. Do you agree?
I agree, but you cannot you cannot not present what the media presents because it's factual. If the media presents that that's how it is, and it would be factual, I must say the media is quite strict in placing information, and they themselves heed this warning from the General Mawela pertaining fake news. And I deal with all the media, and I can tell you they thoroughly check things out before they place things. And unfortunately, if I understand the statement or question correctly, that you can only place what there is. And unfortunately, this is the situation. We have seen today, I've sent out a project today where a very well-known criminal has only have to pay a fine of 10,000 Rand, and he may not have or bear any weapons anymore in his life, and he may not do safety and security services anymore. But in the meantime, he committed quite a stretch of crimes over the years, which is horrific. And even the police in itself would say this is not a deterrent, and this is not a proper punishment. But that's how it is. And unfortunately, in South Africa, we have, if we can call it, corrupt courts or influenced courts or uninformed courts or illiterate courts, whatever you want to call it. Unfortunately, the judicial system in South Africa is flawed. It's a slow-go system. It takes 3 to 4 years for a case like that, and then it's thoroughly pushed by the investigators to do that, by thorough investigators. There are cases here in South Africa that runs between 10 and 15 years. And especially now with COVID, there's a backlog on forensics for years and years, and ballistics for years and years, and due to all the power failures, there's a lot of DNA and a lot of forensic information lost because freezers and freezing units of very important forensic information has not received power or were kept intact. So I can carry on and on and on. The judicial system is extremely flawed in South Africa, and is one of the reasons why the criminals knows that. They commit crime because they can and can get away with it.
Right.
This is a lucrative country to commit crime, let me tell you. You really need to cause serious shit here to be kept in jail. We have cases of guys being arrested many a times, and then they keep on getting bail. We have thousands of cases of people that committed very serious crimes and are given bail that is never found, that never comes back to court. There's an infrastructure that cannot deal with it. There's police that cannot find these people. It's very easy in South Africa to get lost here and not found. The infrastructure cannot deal with the influx and the situation in South Africa, the crime situation in South Africa. They cannot deal with it. And unfortunately, this is so. It is factual. The punishment is bad. The judicial system is slow go, and the policing infrastructure cannot do cases properly.
Right. Now, I just want to give an example of what you're talking about. The Speaker of the Parliament, Thuli Modise, I think her name is, in 2014, over 50 farm animals on her farm starved to death. And
I remember.
And the police never charged her. It took the NSPCA and AfriForum to actually force the hand of the police, and she is now facing charges for cruelty to animals. But this kind of sums up how crap the justice system is in South Africa, because we're now in 2020, and that was 6 years ago. And clearly she's guilty, and she's the Speaker of the Parliament. I mean, there's something very wrong in that equation, if you know what I'm talking about. Now,
there's hundreds of these stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're all factual. They're all factual. It's not stories. There's hundreds. Yeah. There's thousands of this. This is going on constantly. So there's the answer to that person's question and situation. You have to present it, unfortunately, as it is. But Scott, I have to say, we all know what's wrong, and we all know what's going on. So I do have a problem if something is constantly brought up and constantly reposted and constantly being put in the media and constantly being pushed into your face and on all the networks. We know what's going on farm owners. We don't need to see anymore. We know what's going on with violent crimes in our country, government corruption, police corruption, child molestation, rapes, kidnappings. We know it all. So, the media, this is their work. They will constantly write on what's going and present on what's going on, unfortunately. But there is something that I disagree with. It's not solution-based. It's informative-based, and just you see every day the very thing that you know.
Right. Now, just talking about solutions, what are the factors hampering the very solutions you're talking about?
I would say the main factor hampering solutions of what I've already presented, where I have suggested that all people should see in South Africa, everybody should see the enemy in our country is crime, because crime affects anybody. If I am killed tonight, I have about 300 people that rely on me financially. I have thousands of cases that I monitor, and investigators that are working on those cases that I'm leaving behind without a leader, which will have a serious effect on thousands of people.
Right.
And unless this scenario which I have sketched, where each one is seen that he is or she is important, even if it's in the minutest way. I have people that keep my garden. I do not have such a beautiful garden unless they are there. I have people that keep my house pristinely clean, and I thank them for that, and I do not have a pristine clean house unless I have them. I have a beautiful wife and wonderful kids. I would not have that if they are not that to me. I can carry on and on. I've got the best of investigators. I would not have them if I do not have that relationship with them. This is a very important relationship because there's certain things I can do, there's certain things I can't do. This makes the puzzle. And we are a complete unit, working and trying to be as complete as possible because we all know each other's worth. And therefore I am prepared to take the bullet for all my workers and for all my investigators, for all my, I don't actually have friends, but for all the people that I know and care for and look after and my clients. I am well known that I am always out there to try and help and try and sort things. I'm not the easiest guy to communicate with. I'm very harsh, abrupt, to the point. I butt in constantly. If a person starts speaking to me, I stop him because I know exactly where it goes, and I give very quick and thorough commands, and because I do so many calls and cases. And it sometimes upsets a person, but you know what? If the second thing I can say is if there's more tolerance, if there's more an understanding of, each person is different. The biggest mistake you can make is if you walk up to somebody and think that that person knows what you know. If you walk up to a person, you must always look rather what you can give to him than what you can get from him. And you must always ask yourself, what does he know and what do I know, and how can we combine that together and make that difference? And if a person comes to me, I know that they come to get from me, and I must be ready to give. And if people can be more tolerant and more understanding and more direct with each other and not speak behind their backs and not say things on Facebook without even following the golden rule, and that is to call a person and say, you know what, I'm upset with you. I just don't like you. I've heard this, that, and the other. Then at least you get a chance to have this discussion and you can build a relationship there. You can apologize, put things right, or explain and give the facts. If you just post something because you've heard something about somebody, or you're under the impression, or you made some form of deduction out of something or an opinion, and you just post it, you're not posting factual information. But if you go out of your way, whomever you have a problem with, and you call them, like the steps in alcoholism, you follow certain rules in building relationships. You call a person and you say to him, listen, or her, this has been bothering me. I am going to have this discussion with you. Please, can we talk this, and can I say what I mean and mean what I say, and can you do the same and have it out? And then if there's absolutely no solution, even go an extra mile and say, listen, let's get somebody to assist us with and make a decision, a proper decision here, or a compromise. Needless to say, thirdly, if there's real criminals, you expose them. You have to do that. You cannot keep silent. You cannot allow crime to happen in this country but not expose it, but to a moderate sense. As I've said, it's very, very important to expose crime as it is, to warn people, to warn the public about a specific criminal that's knocking and scamming you, or that's syndicates that's doing sex torsion, or a specific person taking millions from the public and squandering it, or all these cryptocurrency schemes, and there's so many. Then you need to warn. Anything that can harm the public, by all means, put it on Facebook. Anything that can harm or is to the disadvantage of the human race, all people, you need to expose it. That's when you expose. But if you don't have relationships with the people that you have, and if all people can just come together and see, you know what, Mike, you are right. We need to stand against crime. I disagree with you about this and that, but let's agree to disagree. I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. You are right. We need to address crime, and this is the solution, is how to address crime.
Right. Now, I have to say, Mike, that I've got 3 YouTube channels, the 2 which I use actively, and they're called community channels, and a lot of the people who are watching right now on the side chat are actually part of the Loving Life family. I see them every single night, and that's why this channel has grown exponentially, because people feel it's a safe place to go. They can chat. They've got to know each other. It's a community, and what you're talking about makes an awful lot of sense. Now, I want to just talk about you, because you're an incredibly brave man, and I've got to say this, because you're out there facing hardened criminals every day, and I'm thinking about what happened to Kenya in Cape Town just a week ago, or a couple of weeks ago, where he was shot point blank when he was getting out of his car, or he was in his car outside his house, and that was clearly an assassination. Don't you worry about this happening to you? Because you did touch on that just now.
Ironically, Scott, I don't, because I'm very, very stable in what I believe in. I believe in God, the God of the Bible, and I say it to no offense to anybody else, but that is what I believe in, and I believe that God has created me, He has given me breath, and He is the only one that can take it. And if I'm to be killed or assassinated, there would be a reason for that, and it would be in God's allowed will. Although I do strongly believe that I will not die soon, I think I've still got a lot to offer, and I'm ready and willing and able to do so. I don't think on the thought of who is my enemy. I must tell you this, I see crime as the enemy. I have dealt with the worst of the worst gangs, but they all respect me. You can phone any gangster and they'll tell you why they respect me. It's because I say it exactly as it is. If there's one thing gangsters hate, and syndicates and mafioso groups, is when you're not truthful with them. They've got a code of conduct. The Hells Angels, the elite groups, bouncer groups, you name it, all the horrific groups that we've had in our country. If there's one thing they hate, they call it a draadsitter. And that in English means you're in the middle. When the wind blows this way, you're there.
Sitting on the fence.
The wind blows that way, you go with the flow, or suddenly you're with this group or that group. They've always respected me because they knew I was the competition in the sense of keeping them either on their toes or closing them down or going up against them, which obviously they also adapted to and make better moves as to evade the authorities, etc. So it was iron sharpens iron here. But I've always been respected by all criminals, and many a times a lot of these criminals has turned and has come to my office and has made amends, and we've become we've built relationships. I am the first oak that will stretch out my hand to a criminal that walks in and says that he's parting his evil ways and he wants to make a difference. And I've got people working for me that has been in jail. I've got a lot of people and institutions that I operate with that had very bad histories, but they have changed. And that's maybe another point I wanted to mention just now as well. People can change. If you have a problem with somebody, take the chance to have a proper discussion with that person rather than to post constantly bad things about him, by asking if that person has changed and what is his views now and can we talk about it. You know, proper communication will make you feel eventually much more relieved. There's a word in the Bible that in Afrikaans that says, 'n sagte woord keer die grimmigheid af,' which means a soft word spoken can take the heat and the aggression out of a situation. If you are a communicator first and then an action taker, you are on the right move. But if you're just an action taker and you just post or just go on or do things and you're irresponsible, you will never have peace. You will never have real answers, and you will never feel that you've achieved what you wanted to achieve. You actually, and all of us actually, all just wants the truth. We just want to know exactly what it is, what's going on, how it is, and where we stand with everything. I do hundreds of divorce cases, and let me tell you, the worst thing for a wife is wondering. I wonder if he has an affair. I wonder if he really loves me. If you could take the wonder out of the situation, or the uncertainty, you have a relationship. And I always say to people, if you're uncertain, or if this or that, talk it out first, then you know exactly where you stand.
Right. That's good advice.
You can either walk away, or you agree or disagree, or you can build a relationship.
Yeah, that's great advice. Now, you talked about the gangs. Do you, or have you had much contact with the prison gangs, like the 28s? Do you actually... They're a terrible gang, aren't they? I mean, is that something that you just cannot get through to?
No. We are always available to anybody, but we can also do as much. And that is a gang on a different level. And to infiltrate there and to build a relationship, they will have to come from their side, because you cannot walk in there and say to them, hey guys, let's have a cup of tea. You'll have to walk in there with several Uzis, very serious guns and heavy muscle, and then say, we will have tea. Otherwise, it won't work. But let me put everybody at ease there. We are in communication with everybody. We're extremely well known. Everybody knows how we operate, and we are always available to anybody, whether it's the most innocent person or whether it's the biggest criminal. Our doors and we work on a basis of, if somebody gives his full cooperation, whether he's bringing a case or a case being brought against him, that's the best solution. That's the first step. And we have that relationship with everybody. We are completely and always and totally neutral. We absolutely focus on that, to be neutral in anything, so that we are not emotional or being influenced by anything other than facts.
Right. Okay, now I've got a couple more questions for you, then we'll get on to your new Bolhuis series. But before we do, I just want to say to people, look, below this video in the description, you'll see the link to Mike's Facebook page, or his business's Facebook page. So please do go and check that out and join to keep informed about what his organization is doing. Okay, now... Winston Young has asked, Mike, do you think that the people arrested for corruption will be charged eventually?
That's as I've said, it's a very big problem in our country. They make many a times a big hoo-ha about corruption, and it's in the news for a day or two, and then the next day there's something more horrific or something totally different, and it's forgotten. We have a situation in South Africa, unfortunately, that nothing shocks or stuns you anymore. Nothing. There's nothing. You can read today of the worst, and you've explained some of the worst murders, and I have, but tomorrow there's something worse and more horrific. I have said that corruption pays in South Africa. The guys get arrested, but you never hear of them going to jail. You never hear of the Reserve Bank getting money back. You never hear of any debt collection done by the government. You never hear of the extreme successes, if there is, by SARS or any of our financial institutions. You never hear the good news. So unfortunately, no, I don't think... I think all the government guys have got files and information on each other, and they're all either bribing each other or extorting each other or warning each other. If you do this to me, I'll do that to you. If you expose this, I'll expose that. So it's an ugly, ugly, corrupt situation where I'm under the impression that many of these things that the media do write about is fed to them, or information that is actually factual, but it is so, but just to... appease us and to stroke us a bit and say, see, we're doing this, that, and the other, but you never hear of a success. You never, well, seldom. So now and then you'll see a hell of a story of cars and Porsches and stuff being taken and bank accounts frozen, etc. And then later on you suddenly hear the cars were returned and the bank accounts were given back, etc., etc. So there is absolutely No good news there.
Right.
The corruption will keep on as long as this government is carrying on as it's presently carrying on. There is no such thing as zero tolerance. And I think those that are caught, the guys that takes their place, has learned from the previous guys to take more money and be more careful.
Right. Okay, now I've got one final question. If you've got any questions you'd like to put to Mike, guys, please post them now. Wolfie has asked, what if hacking is used for the good of the country and its people? For example, if Zuma was hacked, he could be completely exposed and anyone he had dealings with. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the law protects the criminal. You dare. You've just said previously what you're pertaining guns, what you're allowed and not allowed. I can tell you now, if you want protection, you cause a crime. If you really want protection, you need to cause serious crime, because then suddenly you've got so many rights. We have a very, very big problem with that. Not that we want to take the law into our own hands, but we have seen it many a times before. How many cases have fallen? How many people have come to see us and say, listen, this has happened, and this is what they have done, and the police or the authorities have seen that as unlawful, and therefore the case has been thrown out. You cannot literally touch the criminal today. Once he's incarcerated, it is a process. It's a slow-go judicial system. It is very, very frustrating, with corrupt policemen many a times involved, prosecutors that's corrupt, and judges that are insufficient. The chances of proper judicial and prosecutions in the near or in the future is going to be very scarce. It's always been. So hacking or exposure, South Africa does not have a proper cybercrime unit. We hope to have one soon, but we've been saying that for years and years and years. But off the record, on the record, I know that there is certain parties that we work closely with that's going to do their utmost, because they know that the future is in electronics and it is cybercrime. But unless we have a proper cybercrime unit, you will still have situations where a lot of people will keep on committing corruption under the radar and not properly exposed for what they're doing on their platforms and cell phones. And let me tell you, especially now that this Kyknet hit has gone down, you must understand there's a lot of criminals that use the technology of today, as I've said before, for evil. So extreme technology was used to track and trace Colonel Kyknet, and he was hit. And he was targeted, and this was known for years that he was going to hit, and the police knew of this, and nothing seriously was done about this. So
they gave him no protection.
Both ways. Yeah, it hits both ways. So as I've said, the corruption, it's like an octopus. There's so many arms out there that is corrupt, and you can have and South Africa at a stage had proper grabbers, but they're all locked up and they're not working, and they're not in working conditions. And not only that, we don't have operators who can operate them. It's like having all these fighter jet planes and you've got no pilots. So I can carry on and on and on. But a proper, thorough, Israeli level, American, Russia level cybercrime unit in South Africa can make a hell of a difference. But once again, if that lands into the hands of this present government, they will just spy on each other, make files on each other, and they will all extort each other, and no one will squeal and talk, because each and every one will have something of each other.
Right. I've got one final question.
Shocking.
I've got one final question for you before we get on to your new series on Kyknet. Moira T has asked, the dum's been blasted in South Africa, and is Ace Magashula going to be arrested? I don't know what their dum's been blasted in South Africa is, but that's what she says.
I don't know much of Ace's situation, but my previous answer should suffice.
Yeah.
The arrests on government level that is taken place, in my opinion, will not carry much wait and make such a difference to public opinion or bring change about unless, as I've said, the main solution and aim that we're steering at is that President Ramaphosa speaks to the public as I have spoken to you. He needs to take a stand. He needs to be like me, if I can be that obnoxious. If this president and his government does not feel about this country as I do, I want to tell you, Scott, it's a difficult emotion for me to explain, but I am a totally unemotional, emotional person, which means this. It's very difficult to understand. Even myself sometimes have difficulty in understanding that. But I am not emotional when it comes to investigations, doing crimes. I can see any blood. I can deal with any horrific rape, child molestation. I can deal with the worst of the worst, etc., etc. But when it comes to seeing the demise of this country, the fall of this country, the poverty, the ignorance, the illiteracy, the suffering of people, the slaughter of human beings and animals. Remember, I'm an extreme nature lover. I was the originator of the Flamingo Project. I was the one that said, this is fucking enough. And I went and rescued 2,134 baby flamingos that were about to burn to death in the extreme Kimberley sun. And Stan Sam Linya assisted me with that. And then I created many hubs. So that's where my emotions come in. I love this country. I tell you now, if I can have half an hour with Ramaphosa, I will give him all my support if he were to change. The same with the heads of police. If I can just have a chat with all these people in authority and say to them, listen, I'm here to help and I can get many others to help, but let's do this together and let's make a difference to this beautiful country. Because it's falling apart rapidly and there will be nothing left soon. And that is where my emotions comes in. I, if I can say, love this country and its people. I really care for everybody. I want it to go good with the poor person in the squatters camp. I want him to have something to eat. I want him to have at least the basic facilities that any human being wants. I want that for the richest of peoples in South Africa. I want that for the poorest. I want safety and security. I want peace and some form of shelter. I want an authority that protects and serves. I want this for this country so much, and that's why I'm not leaving. And I've got the finances to leave, but I'm staying here and I'm trying to make this difference. And I think this is the only solution. I just need the government and the authorities, the police and so, to see it the way that I see it, because I think I am right, and I think if we can implement this, it can bring a change about.
Right. Now, just for the record, DUMS apparently means deep underground military bases. Now, Mike, I want to turn now to your new Bolhuis series. It's starting on Kyknet on the 15th of October. I'm just going to put up an image so people can see more. They can actually see a visual of the Bolhuis program. Can you tell us what you're going to be doing? Is it going to be like dealing with particular crimes, or is it going to be an action series? What's going to be on there?
It's the real reality. I don't know if you guys have seen a reality show and then you've said to yourself, this is acting, or there's something fishy here, or it doesn't have a ping sound, it sounds pong. Now, the Bolhuis series, this first season was out last year or the year before, and it is was a huge success, and it deals with the crimes in South Africa, much of what we have discussed tonight. So the Bolhuis series is much of what we have done tonight, but obviously with cases being presented, interviews being done by other specialists and by victims or even the criminals. So it's 13 episodes. It starts at the 15th of October on a Thursday night, which is a very, it's a fantastic time, a slot. It's the most watched night, I believe. And everybody is looking very much forward to it because they have enjoyed Bolhuis Series 1. And as I've said, it deals with exactly what we've discussed tonight and what we're going through in this country, presenting cases, and it's all different cases. And we say it also exactly as it is, and we would say, really, this is the real reality. What you see there is how we are, and you've seen how I speak tonight and how I talk and how I present things, and then you will see there I'm the same. I believe in being transparent. I don't like the facade. I'm not like this in the church and this in front of my wife and this in front of you, Scott, or anybody else. I'm like this. I like to dress up. I like to have a tie and a shirt. I like to smell nice. I like a nice, strong perfume. I've got certain things that I like. I've always been like that. And the Bolhuis series brings the stuff in my life out. It shows where I live, what I love, what I do, how I deal with crime, what staff works for me, what the investigators does. And everybody that knows us knows that this is the real reality. And I can honestly say it is worthwhile watching because it deals with crime as it is and solutions. Because as I've said to you before, we deal with solutions. In other words, it teaches you, it gives you advice, and you can learn from every episode.
Right. Okay, so guys, Thursday the 15th October at 8 p.m. on Kyknet. And I think that's DSTV, isn't it?
Yes.
Yep, okay.
What we'll do, Scott, is they've started only just advertising that it's coming up. But what they usually do is they will make quite a few teasers. Some of them are quite hilarious. I'll send it all to you, and you can send it to all your.
I'll put them up on the channel.
On all your everybody can have it, and we'll feed you and everything that comes through. And I just want to say once again to everybody out there, thank you so much for spending time with Scott and me. Thank you for the opportunity, and I pray that God bless you guys richly with wisdom, insight, discernment, knowledge, prosperity, health, and all the brilliant stuff that I would want for you guys. And I pray that you are safe, and I pray that crime does not get a hold of you in any way. And please spend the proper family time with yourself, your wife, your kids. Value relationships and treat your neighbor like you would treat yourself. Love your neighbor like you would love yourself. And my battery is running low. So I think it's the best time to greet as quickly as possible.
Fantastic. Now, just one quick question for you, Mike. Can you make sure that there's no copyright issues on those teasers that you send me with DSTV? Because what I don't want to do is put it up and suddenly, bang, I'll get a copyright strike through YouTube.
Done.
Okay, fantastic.
I will learn from you, Scott. You tell me what you want, I'll give it.
Okay, no problems. I'll do that. All right, Mike, look, I just want to thank you so much for spending a couple of hours with us. As I said earlier, I do apologize for that slight interruption in starting the live stream. That was a technical issue with my broadcasting software, which hopefully has been resolved, because it's really irritating when that happens, believe me. I want to thank our moderators in the side chat for doing the great job that you always do. And I just also want to thank, we've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people watching this live stream. I just want to thank every one of you for being part of this and putting your questions in the side chat or having a discussion. Remember that the Loving Life channel is a family channel. We're a community, and you can see that from the interaction of people in the side chat. If you want to join our family, just subscribe. It's that simple. And we have live streams most nights at 8 p.m. Johannesburg time. Saturday night we're going to have another jamming session, so you can sit down and listen to some great singing and relax. You know, just have a nice quiet evening. Okay, with all that being said, thank you so much once again, Mike. You know, you make a lot of sense in what you say. I got to say, you're basically talking about taking all the wind out of these stressful situations by people communicating, and that is such an important point you make. All right, I'm going to leave it at that, guys. I'm just going to close off just once again showing the teaser ad for Bolhuis. Don't forget, 8 p.m. starts on the 15th. Is it every Thursday night, Mike?
Yes, every Thursday night.
And how many programs will there be?
13.
Okay, so it's a series of 13 every Thursday night from the 15th of October.
Yeah, 1 hour long.
Right, okay. Okay, so please take care, guys. I'm going to leave the side chat open for a few minutes so you can interact. The side chat will disappear on this video later today or tomorrow morning, because I'm going to edit out that piece which we had a problem with, and once I do that, the side chat just goes, and it's just a glitch that YouTube have. But well, I think we've covered everything that's important. All right, please take care, and once again, Mike, thank you, and please have a great evening.
Thanks. God bless all. Ciao.
And also just keep in touch with Marlena, Mike. If there's something that you want to tell the world, just let Marlena know and we'll have you back on.
Yes, I will. And I'll always be available, Scott. If you ever want to do this again, you're more than welcome to contact me.
Fantastic. And finally, once I've edited out that piece, which is a bit of a disaster at the very start, what I'll do is I'll send you the link, and feel free to share it with your groups and whoever. I'll get that to you probably in the morning your time.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, guys.
Everybody.